thank you for that question. I would begin by saying that I'm not sure it's a weakness, but I do believe that I share a sense of optimism for America's future that today is eroding from too many of our people. I think there's a sense in this country today that somehow our best days are behind us, and that doesn't have to be true. Our greatest days lie ahead if we are willing to do what it takes now. If we are willing to do what it takes now, the 21st century is going to be the new American century, greater than any other era we've had in the history of this great nation.
You've been a young man in a hurry ever since you won your first election in your 20s. You've had a big accomplishment in the Senate, an immigration bill providing a path to citizenship that conservatives in your party hate and even you don't support anymore. Now you're skipping more votes than any senator to run for president. Why not slow down, get a few more things done first, or at least finish what you start?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's exactly what the Republican establishment says, too. Why don't you wait in line? Wait for what? This country's running out of time. We can't afford to have another 4 years like the last 8 years. Watching this broadcast tonight are millions of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. They're working as hard as they ever have. Everything costs more, and they haven't had a raise in decades. You have small businesses in America that are struggling. For the first time in 35 years, we have more businesses closing than starting. We have a world that's out of control and has grown dangerous, and a president that is weakening our military and making our foreign policy unstable and unreliable in the eyes of our allies, and our adversaries continue to grow stronger. They say there's no bipartisanship in Washington. We have a $19 trillion bipartisan debt, and it continues to grow as we borrow money from countries that do not like us to pay for government we cannot afford. The time to act is now. The time to turn the page is now. If we don't act now, we are going to be the first generation in American history that leaves our children worse off than ourselves.
So when the Sun Sentinel says Rubio should resign, not rip us off, when they say Floridians sent you to Washington to do a job, when they say you act like you hate your job, do you?
Yeah, let me say, I read that editorial today with a great amusement. It's actually evidence of the bias that exists in the American media today.
But do you hate your job?
Let me answer your question on the Sun Sentinel editorial today. Back in 2004, one of my predecessors to the Senate, by the name of Bob Graham, a Democrat, ran for president, missing over 30% of his votes. I don't recall them calling for his resignation.
Is that the standard?
Later that year, in 2004, John Kerry ran for president, missing close to 60 to 70% of his votes. I don't recall the Sun... In fact, the Sun Sentinel endorsed him. In 2008, Barack Obama missed 60 or 70% of his votes, and the same newspaper endorsed him again. So this is another example of the double standard that exists in this country between the mainstream media and the conservative movement.
Because I'm a constituent of the senator, and I helped him, and I expected that he would do constituent service, which means that he shows up to work. He got endorsed by the Sun Sentinel because he was the most talented guy in the field. He's a gifted politician. But Marco, when you signed up for this was a 6-year term, and you should be showing up to work. I mean, literally, the Senate, what is it, like a French work week? You get like 3 days where you have to show up? You can campaign or just resign and let someone else take the job. There are a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck in Florida as well. They're looking for a senator that will fight for them each and every day.
I get to respond, right?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Well, it's interesting. Over the last few weeks, I've listened to Jeb as he's walked around the country and said that you're modeling your campaign after John McCain, that you're going to launch a furious comeback the way he did by fighting hard in New Hampshire and places like that, carrying your own bag at the airport. You know how many votes John McCain missed when he was that furious comeback that you're now modeling it under?
He wasn't my...
No, Jeb, I don't remember... Well, let me tell you, I don't remember you ever complaining about John McCain's vote record. The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position, and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you.
Well,
Here's the bottom line. My campaign is going to be about the future of America. It's not going to be about attacking anyone else on this stage. I will continue to have tremendous admiration and respect for Governor Bush. I'm not running against Governor Bush. I'm not running against anyone on the stage. I'm running for president because there is no way we can elect Hillary Clinton to continue the policies of Barack
Thank you,
Obama.
Senator. I think there's a bigger issue. Somebody's really doing some bad facts.
Since I've been mentioned, can I respond?
Yes, you may.
Okay. You know, the Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media, who every single day, and I'll tell you why. Last week, Hillary Clinton went before a committee. She admitted she had sent emails to her family saying, hey, this attack in Benghazi was caused by al-Qaeda-like elements. She spent over a week telling the families of those victims and the American people that it was because of a video. And yet the mainstream media is going around saying it was the greatest week in Hillary Clinton's campaign. It was the week she got exposed as a liar. It was the week that she got exposed as a liar in Benghazi. But she has her super PAC helping her out, the American mainstream media.
Marco Rubio, you yourself have said that you've had issues. You have a lack of bookkeeping skills. You accidentally intermingled campaign money with your personal money. You faced foreclosure on a second home that you bought. And just last year, you liquidated a $68,000 retirement fund. That's something that cost you thousands of dollars in taxes and penalties. In terms of all of that, it raises the question whether you have the maturity and the wisdom to leave a $17 trillion economy. What do you say?
Well, you just listed a litany of discredited attacks from Democrats and my political opponents, and I'm not going to waste 60 seconds detailing them all. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Here's the truth. I didn't inherit any money. My dad was a bartender. My mother was a maid. They worked hard to provide us the chance at a better life. They didn't save enough money for us to go to school. I had to work my way through school. I had to borrow money to go to school. Try early in my marriage explaining to my wife why someone named Sally Mae was taking $1,000 out of our bank account. I know what it's like to owe that money, and we've worked hard. We've worked hard our whole life to provide a better life for our family. We own a home 4 blocks away from the place that I grew up in. My 4 children have been able to receive a good Christian education, and I've been able to save for them to go to college, so they never have to have the loans that I did. But I'm not worried about my finances. I'm worried about the finances of everyday Americans who today are struggling in an economy that is not producing good-paying jobs while everything else costs more. And that's what this economy needs to be. That's what this debate needs to be about. This debate needs to be about the men and women across this country that are struggling on a daily basis to provide for their families the better future that we've always said this country's all about.
Senator, I understand all of that. I had a lot of student loans when I got out, too. But you've had a windfall that a lot of Americans haven't. You made over $1 million on a book deal, and some of problems came out.
And I use it to pay off my loans, and it's available on paperback if you're interested in buying it.
But you liquidated that retirement account after the fact, and that cost you about $24,000 out of that in taxes and fees. That was after you'd already come into that windfall. That's why I raised the question.
Yeah, again, as I said, we're raising a family in the 21st century, and it's one of the reasons why my tax plan is a pro-family tax plan. It increases the per-child tax credit, because I didn't read about this in a book. I know for a fact how difficult it is to raise children, how expensive it's become for working families, and I make a lot more than the average American. Imagine how hard it is for these people out there that are making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they're trying to provide for their families at a time when this economy is not growing. We can't afford another 4 years of that, which is what we're going to get if we elect a big government liberal like Hillary Clinton to the White House.
Thank you, Senator.
Wired magazine recently carried the headline, Marco Rubio wants to be the tech industry's savior. It noted your support for dramatically increasing immigration visas called H-1B, which are designed for workers with the special skills that Silicon Valley wants. But your Senate colleague Jeff Sessions of Alabama says in reality, the tech industry uses this program to undercut hiring and wages for highly qualified Americans. Why is he wrong?
Well, first of all, if a company gets caught doing that, they should never be able to use the program again. If you get caught abusing this program, you should never be able to use it again. The second thing I've said is we need to add reforms, not just increase the numbers, but add reforms. For example, before you hire anyone from abroad, you should have to advertise that job for 180 days. You also have to prove that you're going to pay these people more than you would pay someone else so that you're not undercutting it by bringing in labor. But here's the best solution of all. We need to get back to training people in this country to do the jobs of the 21st century. Why? For the life of me, I do not understand why did we stop doing vocational education in America. People that can work with their hands, people that you can train to do this work while they're still in high school so they can graduate ready to go work. So the best way to close this gap is to modernize higher education so Americans have the skills for those jobs. But in the interim, in the absence of that, what's happening is some of these tech companies are taking those centers to Canada because they can get people to go over there instead of here. But the ideal scenario is to train Americans to do the work so we don't have to rely on people from abroad.
Well, it sounds like you think Senator Sessions is wrong to believe there's enough abuse in that program that we shouldn't increase the number.
Well, I believe there are abuses. Those companies should be permanently barred from ever using the program again, and we should put strict standards in place to ensure that they're not being abused.
Thank you,
like
Senator.
the prevailing wage requirement and like the advertisement requirement.
Thank you, Senator. The Tax Foundation, which was alluded to earlier, scored your tax plan and concluded that you give nearly twice as much of a gain in after-tax income to the top 1% as to people in the middle of the income scale. Since you're the champion of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, don't you have that backwards?
No, you're wrong. In fact, the largest after-tax gains is for the people at the lower end of the tax spectrum under my plan. And there's a bunch of things my tax plan does to help them. Number one, you have people in this country...
Tax Foundation, just to be clear, they said the gains after tax income...
You wrote a story on it, and you had to go back and correct it. You did.
I did not.
Oh, you did.
No.
And so, because
Senator, the Tax Foundation said after-tax income for the top 1% under your plan would go up 27.9%.
Well, you're talking
and
about
people in the middle of the income spectrum, about 15%.
Yeah, but because the math is, 5% of a million is a lot more than 5% of 1,000. So yes, if someone makes more money, numerically it's going to be higher. But the greatest gains percentage-wise for people are going to be at the lower end of our plan. And here's why. Because in addition to a general personal exemption, we are increasing the per-child tax credit for working families. We are lowering taxes on small business. You know, a lot of business activity in America is conducted like the guy that does my dry cleaning. He's an S corporation. He pays on his personal rate, and he is paying higher than the big dry cleaning chain down the street because he's paying at his personal rate. Under my plan, no business, big or small, will pay more than 25% flat rate on their business income. That is a dramatic tax decrease for hardworking people who run their own businesses.
John, I'd like to address...
The other point that I would make about our plan, one more point, it is the most pro-growth tax plan that I can imagine because it doesn't tax investments at all. You know why? The more you tax something, the less of it you get. I want America to be the best place in the world for people to
Senator,
invest.
thank you.
I'd like to...
Look, in addition to what Donald is saying, we also need to talk about the legal immigration system for permanent residency. Today we have a legal immigration system for permanent residency that is largely based on whether or not you have a relative living here. And that's the way my parents came legally in 1956. But in 2015, we have a very different economy. Our legal immigration system from now on has to be merit-based. It has to be based on what skills you have, what you can contribute economically, and most important of all, on whether or not you're coming here to become an American. Not just live in America, but be an American.
Thank you, Senator. Carl?
30 seconds here.
To take off from that point and argue the same thing, and that is that one of the things you're watching tonight are 11 quality candidates debating an important issue. The Republican Party is blessed to have 11 good candidates. If there are 10 good candidates, the Democrats can't even come up with one. And on this issue of Medicare in particular, it's important because they're going to demagogue what we're saying here tonight. Everyone up here tonight that's talking about reforms, I think, and I know for myself I speak for this, we're all talking about reforms for future generations. Nothing has to change for current beneficiaries. My mother's on Medicare and Social Security. I'm against anything that's bad for my mother. So we're talking about reforms for people like me and people like Senator Cruz, as he talked about earlier, who are years away from retirement that have a way to plan for these changes in a way very reasonable. And it's not too much to ask of our generation after everything our parents and our grandparents did for us. You know, America doesn't owe me anything. I have a debt to America I'll never repay. This isn't just the country I was born in. This is the nation that literally changed the history of my family. My parents in this country were able to give me the chance to do all the things they never did. We call that the American dream, although it's built on the universal dream of a better life. The fact that it's happened for so many people here throughout our history, that's what makes us special. But now for millions of Americans, it's slipping away. And we have a government and leaders in government that are completely out of touch, and that's why I'm running for president. Because we can't just save the American dream, we can expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. And that's why tonight I'm asking you for your vote. Hey, it's Marco Rubio. Thanks for watching. Make sure to click below to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get our campaign's latest videos. Go ahead, I'll wait.